Hello guys, welcome to my channel Science and Engineering Knowledge Academy. Today we are going to discuss what is a lean startup, what does we mean by a lean startup, and how the lean startup works. Let's define lean startup. Lean startup is a scientific approach of building new businesses based on the belief that entrepreneurs must investigate, experiment, test, and iterate as they develop products or any service. So, the idea of a lean startup is based on the scientific approach where you investigate, experiment, perform tests, obviously with a lot of iteration and iterative processes in order to develop a product. Now, what is the difference between other approaches and this approaches? In other startups, there is no scientific approach, there is no step-by-step processing or lack of experimentation and testing. However, in lean startup, it provides a scientific approach to creating and managing startups and get the desired product to customers' hand faster. So the lean startup method basically is a fastest way or a more faster approach to get your products to the hands of the customer. And why is that? Because lean startup depends upon the data. You take the data from the customer, you analyze that data, you perform different kind of tests and experiments on that, then you run the learn, measure, build or the build, measure, learn loop, and obviously at the end of the day you get to a business or startup where the risk has been tried to minimize and the solution has been developed more faster and in a more scientific way. So lean startup basically work on the build, measure, learn loop, and this is the main theme or the core of the lean startup, where you build, measure, and learn. How this is going to work, we'll discuss that in the later stage. So lean startup has three main components: business model design, MVP, where we basically find out the minimum viable products, business model design, and the business model design canvas will be discussed in a bit detail here. Similarly, customer discovery and development, how we are going to discover our customers or how we are going to develop our customers. And the third one is the agile development. It's very important in this lean startup methodology where you have the agile development based on the software tools where you perform different kind of analysis and come up with a solution which is more faster, more reliable than the other methods, because of the fact that it depends upon a lot of data iteration between the processes, between the build, measure, and learn loop. You perform a lot of iterative processes, and that leads towards the final product. So these are the main three components of the lean startup, where we are going to discuss the business model design, customer discovery and development, and agile development. Now, what does we mean by MVP, minimum viable product? Now, it is very important to understand that there are two loops, one of a minimum bubble and the other is a viable bubble. Now, in a minimum bubble, you see there are crappy products nobody wants to use. So there would be a lot of products, a lot of things that actually nobody wants to use. They are crappy products, right? And there are viable products at this end where the product built by companies better financed than you. So obviously you are a startup. So if you are a startup, you do not want to create something crap at this end, at the extreme left, and you do not have that resources to build a better product, in a sense that you do not have those resources which other companies or established companies or businesses have. So what you are going to do, you are going to find out this region where the minimum where the minimum viable products are being built, whether the product is good products for startup to build. So your startup or your product should lie in this region, right? That should be viable, but that should not be extremely crappy. Yes, that should not be extremely financed. So you are here, you are in this loop, and we are going to search for those products which lie in this area, in this region, where you basically find out the minimum crappiness with the viability, and a mix in a such a mix that you would be able to start your startup and attract the customers and make it more viable. And how this MVP gonna work? Obviously, as I have discussed, that the lean startup depends upon the build, measure, learn loop. So whatever the hypothesis or the idea you formulate, you're gonna build it, create an MVP, minimum viable product, and then you're gonna measure that product, you're gonna test that product, then you're gonna get the data from that testing, and then you're going to learn from that data, where that data is from the markets, from testing, for whatever, in whatever form it is, you're going to learn from that, and again you have to mature your idea, and this loop goes on until unless you build up an MVP, you come up with a strong MVP, where you will be able to pitch that to the investors and into the market. So again, the MVP product itself required this BML, build, measure, learn loop. Now here comes the components of the lean startup. The first component, as we have mentioned earlier, is the business model design. And in the business model design, this entire canvas is of very much importance. What we're going to do is that we are going to start from here, the value proposition, and there is a value proposition design. So every component of this chart, or every aspect of this chart itself, requires a lot of brainstorming and a lot of investigation and a lot of data collection. Now the value proposition has a direct link with the customer segment. So there is a value proposition chart which we'll be going to discuss in the next lectures in detail. And then we're going to start from here, and the customer feedback, then the customer relations, the channel. So we have to first complete this loop, and then the key activities involved, key resources, who would be key partners, what revenue streams you would have been, and then the cost structure. So ultimately we'll be able to find out which business model you are going to use and apply for this particular problem to solve in this value proposition. So you are going to start from here, and obviously that is a loop which you are going to do on a build, measure, learn process, and you will eventually get the value proposition. So this is another format just to be more clear. So you are going to start from here, your idea, where you are going to get the feedback from the customer, then you develop a customer relationship and the channels which you are going to use with your customers, and this loop should go on and on until and unless you get a value proposition. Then what are the key activities and resources involved in this value proposition, and the key partners, the revenue streams, how you are going to generate the revenue, and at the end what is your cost structure, and the revenue minus cost structure would be a profit or a loss actually. The second thing is the customer development. So now that you have that business model there, now you want to do some development or customer discovery. And in a lean startup, that methodology relies on practical research and data collection. What does that mean? It means that you have some learning charts or learning tests, customer feedback tests. You perform all those tests and get the data. And that is a practical research. You have to get out of the building. As such, customer development adopts a get out of the building approach, wherein startups are expected to go out and ask potential users, existing customers, partners, and stakeholders about the product in relation to the business model, that is pricing, distribution, and other feedback. So it is a get out of the building approach. You have to go to the customer, you have to go to the end user, and you have to go to the partners and the stakeholders involved in all here in this chart. So you have to go to the customers, you have to go to the key partners, you have to build a relationship, and at the end you would be able to develop the customer market. This promotes the constant feedback loop. It's very important. It's the core of the lean approach. You know, as we have said that it's a build, measure, learn loop. So that is a constant feedback loop must be involved in there from the customer, from the potential users, from the partners, from the key stakeholders, and within a constant rejection of things that do not work, revision, reiteration of things that can be improved, and retention of things that work well. So how you're gonna get rid of all those things which are bad, which are not appreciated by the stakeholders and the end users? So you're going to reject those things, and you're going to get that idea from the feedback loop. Similarly, those things which work well, or which can be improved, you can retain those things. You can also improve those things, and that would be through the customer feedback loop. So what lean startup do? Lean startup gets a statistical data or in any other form from the customers and the partners and stakeholders involved, and you for that you have to get out of the building. That is very much important. You have to reach out to those who are involved in this process, through which you are going to develop your or mature your business model. Agile development. The third component of the lean startup is agile development. It's very important to understand that the final principle of the lean approach is the adaptation of the agile development, the roots of which stem from the software industry. Now, agile development, when you have data, in the previous section, we have learned that we get data from the customers and the stakeholders. Then we perform different kind of tests using the software tools available in different domains, in different loops, where you would be able to put in that data, and the software will perform that analysis for you, and you will be able to get your decision right with minimum error, because humans are less involved and the softwares are involved, and that stems from software industry. In software, what they do in the software industry, what they do is basically they perform they develop a concept. Then they give that concept to the stakeholders, and from the stakeholders and the end users, then they get a feedback. Then they perform the iterative processes, they improve that processes, and then run certain codes and certain filters on that data, and then improve it, and then this entire thing goes on and on and on and on. And this helps in basically reducing the time. The agile development method shortens the traditional ideas of production cycles that relied on years of production followed by consumer feedback for the final product. You're not going to wait for your final product feedback for years and years and years. In fact, you develop a software or a tool where would you be able to use those softwares or those platforms, feedback platforms, which will do the analysis in a real time, and will give you suggestions on taking the decisions. And in today's world where there is AI integrated models, so you would be able to perform these processes more quickly and more fastly and more accurately. So these things must have to be noted. In the agile work, it tandems with the customer development in order to iteratively and incrementally develop a product, reducing wastage of time and resources. How that works? So when you are in a process of customer development, so that tandem with that, you perform this process of agile development alongside or just followed by the customer development, and that takes place incrementally. Developing the product, you get the feedback from the customer, you evolve that your product, you make some corrective measures, then again you get to the customer, and that loop goes on and on and on while you are in the phase of the customer development, or you have just completed that development of the customer phase. So what are you doing? You are getting the real-time feedback on the spot. There is no wastage of time, there is no wastage of resources. You are getting the feedback live of your product from your customers. And this is what the agile development is. Now, what is the main purpose of this agile development, or how that agile development works? So again, as I have mentioned, that you have to perform evaluation of processes and current structure of the company. Then you suggestions for improvement and process optimization, application design together with the client, application construction and implementation, evaluation and monitoring, and this loop goes on and on. This is a bit detailed diagram. If anyone wants to see it and wants to learn from this, so you can pause the video here. You can go through all these texts over here, and you will see how this agile development process takes place, where you start from conceptualization, where you start improving your product based on the feedback. Then you develop an application together with your client, obviously alongside the customer development. Then you apply that application, and then you evaluate and monitor the data in a real time, mostly in the real time or in a very short period of time. So that's the three components of the lean startup. We have the business model, and we are going to develop the business model canvas in the next lectures. And then there is a customer development, and then there is agile method or agile development. It is very important. So how that loop comes from, how that loop works when it comes to design thinking and lean startup, as well as with the agile diagram. So you can see that from the customer problem, which comes from the basically business model design, and from the value proposition that we are going to discuss in the coming lectures. In the value proposition, you find out the pains and the gains and the jobs of the customers, and then you propose some solution. During this process, you empathize with your customer. Then you define those problem solving, those problems and the solutions. Then you perform. Then you generate an idea, right? You basically define here an opportunity. Then you generate an idea. That idea goes to the testing. Then the learn, build, and measure loop goes on and on. Obviously, it's an iterative process. And once it's done, so at the same time, if you see, there's a customer solution, and the lean startup then goes into the agile development, where the execution and the solution phase takes place simultaneously. You get the feedback, you perform the iterative processes of improvement, and then you go on and on to basically solve that problem or solution, or provide the solution. So this is the main idea of the lean startup. Lean startup is a scientific approach, is a step-by-step approach, and in every loop and in every step, whether that is the business model development, whether that is the customer development, whether that is the agile development, in every step, the core is basically build, measure, learn, loop. Thank you.